What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and I have in hand the new D&D Starter Set, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. For those of you unfamiliar, this is a brand new, seemingly possible replacement for Lost Mines of Phandelver, though that's not confirmed at this point. Starter set that is available as of today, the 31st of July, exclusively available at Target and Target stores. You can order this at Target.com if Target will ship to your location, or you can be lucky enough like me and head to an in-person store and actually pick up a copy, though more on that later. For those of you unfamiliar, this will become available to the general public on the 4th of October of this year in places like Amazon, friendly local game stores, as well as being available on D&D Beyond and wherever else you go to pick up books. So, that's kind of a bummer. As I'm sure some of you have already started to sound off in my comments, saying things like, this exclusivity is dumb, I can't believe they do this, this hurts friendly local game stores. All of that is true, but we've also seen this before. A similar thing happened with the D&D Essentials kit, which was also a Target exclusive for around that 3-month time period where you could only pick it up at Target before it became generally available. And I believe something similar was either at ThinkGeek or GameStop stores for the Stranger Things starter set as well. So they wouldn't keep doing it if it didn't work, so I don't know what the reasoning behind it is, but Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast are a company first and foremost, so this is probably a smart business move. Now, what do you get inside here? It's $20. It was the price tag, which is pretty standard for one of these MSRP on the back here, $19.99. Is it worth it? I don't personally think so. Mostly because I think the adventure that you got in both the Essentials kit and the bang for your buck you got for that, as well as the adventure that you got in Lost Mines of Phandelver, the original D&D starter set, I think dwarfed this one immensely. There's a couple of things we're going to talk about the adventure, so again, there will be spoilers ahead as we go through it. But as many of you had suspected, and myself included, it's a level 1 to 3 adventure. As such, it basically has 2 cornerstone encounters that lead to a final boss encounter. The entire adventure, I think, is around 35 pages, and some of that is generic, like, DM stuff that you can cut out of it. Sorry, I got something in my eye. But we'll take a look at that. And they have what I'm going to call nostalgia bait, because you and I, and probably so many others, saw Hank the Ranger and Diana the Acrobat on the front cover of this, and I've seen other art showing off things like, let's see, is there anything on the side? No, Presto, as well as Eric the Cavalier, characters from the D&D cartoon series. And many of us probably thought they were going to be in this adventure in some form, and that is a bold-faced lie. This is just fun, clever art. They are contained nowhere within this adventure in any capacity at all. And that is a huge disappointment to me, because I thought maybe, foolishly so perhaps, that we would have seen a stat block for those characters. Maybe they're NPCs we deal with. Maybe we could see things like updated 5e stats for Hank's energy bow or Presto's hat. No. They're just fun art, and then you can't look into it anymore. And maybe that's because they're thinking like, oh, new players won't know who they are, but this is like a fun little thing for old players, people who know those characters. And that's cool, but like, you can't show us this on the front cover, and then there's nothing like this in the adventure at all. So I'll go ahead and open it up. We'll talk about it, what you get. So here is the adventure booklet here, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. There are no new magic items of any kind. There's a couple of new monster stat blocks. It is a total of a 48-page booklet, including the back cover. But the actual adventure itself is only about 35 pages. You get a set of dice, but you only get 6 dice. You don't even get a percentile, just a set of 6, which is fine. I think the base starter set did this as well, and it looks to be a similar set to the base starter set. It is sort of a blue with sort of marbly luster, white numbers. Nothing crazy. I think we've seen this. Like I said, I think this was the original starter set colors, whereas I think the Essentials kit went for a red, or perhaps this is either way. I think it would have been a cool idea to do something different. And now we do have this piece of paperwork in here, which we are going to follow up on, which basically says you can head to dnd.wizards.com/starter to get more like info about how to play the game. It also has a section here that says what comes next, so I'm curious if that will give us maybe future options. Now, I'd mentioned the Essentials kit fell into a similar range of this. For For those of you unaware, the Essentials Kit, at least originally, came with a code to unlock the Essentials Kit in D&D Beyond, which was the first time. I can't remember if it was a full-on unlock code or a coupon code. I can't remember at this point. It was years ago. But either way, it included it. This does not include anything like that. And once it became publicly available, they also released 3 subsequent adventures for free on D&D Beyond to allow you to continue adventure from the end of where the Essentials Kit finished to go 3 more adventures after the fact. I am hopeful that on the 4th of October, we will get something like this for Dragons of Stormwreck Isle to continue the adventure beyond that, but who knows. There is also a QR code here that says, after you play, tell us what you think. Perhaps there's a survey there, and then again, it gives you all of Wizard's social medias and shows off some other products. We have the Starter Set Rulebook, which basically this is just a printed out copy of the base rules set, not including any character-specific stuff, just the core rules of the game that you can get for free. It also does have some great art in it, which again shows off the D&D characters. You can see again, here's Hank and Diana on the front. But like I said, it's pretty much basic stuff. There's Eric the Cavalier with his shield fighting some skeletons. There's also some other cool like black and white art that I don't recall seeing from anywhere else. Flipping, I know there's a Presto's in here, I think twice in color. The wizard from the... Yeah, here's Presto and Diana and like some sort of octopus tentacle creature. And then there's one more, I think, of Presto casting Magic Missile. There, you can see that right there. So very cool art. You know, makes you think that we might have got something official, but no. So that's that. And then at the end, we also have 5 pre-generated character sheets in the box. And then we also have this white piece of cardboard because the set doesn't even fill up the full box, which is fine. And I thought, well, maybe that's the hook, right? The 5 characters are supposed to be 5 of the original, you know, cartoon characters, but they're not. They're just generic characters. We have a Wood Elf fighter who is a champion fighter if you get to level 3. A Hill Dwarf cleric who is a life domain cleric. A human, non-variant human, devotion paladin. A Lightfoot halfling thief rogue. And a high elf evocation wizard. Now, these are your standard high-quality, high-thick cardstock paper, and then on the back, they provide you your character's backstory, why they're involved in the adventure itself, and then a little bit about what it's like leveling your character up. They have basically built-in stuff for level 2 and for level 3, because this, again, adventure is designed to go from levels 1 to 3. You obviously can also make up your own characters to play this adventure. You don't have to use the pre-written. And a fun fact and a plug, starting Tuesday, the Tuesday that I return from Gen Con, so let me get you the date for that. That will be Tuesday, August 9th. I will be actually streaming this. I just met with my players, a couple of new folks as well, just yesterday or the day before. And we did kind of a session 0, get to know each other, and we're actually going to start playing through and live streaming us playing through Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. I don't anticipate it being very long because the adventure is quite short. It does give you a couple of options for jumping off points to continue with those characters. However, they don't provide any information for that. So I feel like we've covered a little bit about picking things up, about getting it at Target. Oh, you know what? I didn't say that. So I did go to my local Target to try and get this. And when I went there today, the day that it came out. So it showed me that they had 4 in stock. I looked around, didn't see it. I asked someone there, hey, do you have any, can you get me this? I would like to get one. And they were like, yeah, they must be in the back because they're not on the shelf. I'll go look. Guy went away for about 10, 15 minutes, came back and like, yeah, it's total and utter chaos back there. We have so many boxes because we're doing a big like shift. If you might have seen, they're moving stuff around. For example, Target's getting rid of DVDs in general, which is weird because they still have vinyl and compact discs, but either way. So anyway, they're restructuring. So like, yeah, he's like, I can't get it for you. I know it's supposed to come out today, but probably come back tomorrow, which is also quite frustrating if you're trying to pick up stuff and do news when it's news. So I drove to another Target about a half an hour away that said they had 8 in stock. Same situation, found somebody else, said, hey, can you get me them? He said, how many do you want? I said 4, ideally, so that I could do 3 to do a giveaway, especially for folks who don't have Targets anywhere near them. And he said, yeah, let me go look. He was able to bring me 2, he said, because the other 6 are still on the truck because they're still in the process of unboxing and getting massive shipments in. So, again, take that with a grain of salt. Your mileage may vary at your Target. But again, it does seem to be available to purchase on Target.com with a relatively short turnaround time. In fact, some folks were actually getting their copies days before the launch date if they pre-ordered it early enough in advance at Target.com. All right. So that's sort of the adventure. I'll start going through this here. Again, the first couple pages are just a little bit about the Forgotten Realms, because that's where it does take place. And shocker, it takes place on the Sword Coast of the Forgotten Realms, because nothing else ever exists in the Forgotten Realms world. Again, I'm going to give you say it right now. Spoiler alert. I'm going to be going through the contents of the adventure on a very high level. So if you're planning on playing this, please do consider looking away until after you've played it. It is broken down into 4 chapters. Chapter 1 is Dragon's Rest. That's sort of the main hub location of where most of the adventures will start the journey and where adventures and quests and things will be given to them. Seagrow Caves, Cursed Shipwreck, and then the final sort of main encounter, a boss encounter, if you will be the Clifftop Observatory. Basically, shocker with the name of Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, this is an adventure all about dragons. It basically gives you a little bit of history about Bahamut fighting Tiamat. Again, we are in the Forgotten Realms, so consider, like, obviously there was that funky kind of poetry issue, not issue, but poetry in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons that makes them seem like they were friends or lovers, and then, other things happen. Here it just says, Bahamut is good, Tiamat is bad, they fight. All right, so Dragon's Rest is, again, that main location. A red dragon named Sharath rampaged up and down the Sword Coast. 3 metallic dragons joined forces and trapped Sharath under the ocean in an attempt to quell her fire by keeping her at the bottom of the ocean floor. Apparently that led to, or at least the story goes, the volcanic activity that led to the island of Stormwreck Isle being birthed from the sea. So, there's still rumors like, oh, it's real, that really happened, she's still down there slumbering. The adventure says she's probably dead, but there is some sort of magical, powerful force that is below Stormwreck Isle, which you'll get into as you go through the adventure. That's sort of the providing, interesting odds and ends and things throughout the adventure, right? So it also says that it pulls dragons to Stormwreck Isle, this sort of draconic energy, right? Good chromatic dragons and metallic dragons. It says 100 years ago, a blue dragon tried to harness this destructive magic. A bronze dragon named Runara pleaded with him to abandon his schemes. When he refused, Runara killed him, adding one more dragon to the grave to the island. And basically now she's kind of the overseer of it, and she's devoted herself to peace and reconciliation. But obviously things happen, and there may be new conflict there, and that's where the adventure starts. I'm wondering if this fight that we're seeing here on the front with Eric the Cavalier was that fight we just spoke about with the Blue Dragon fighting Runara, which again would be really cool if they were somehow involved in that fight, but right. We do have a couple of maps. For example, here is the Stormwreck Isle map. This is the high road of the Sword Coast here. So it looks like it's about 5 miles west off the Sword Coast. And you can see it does have a few key locations marked with an X. They're basically those same chapters we just talked about. Dragon's Rest. This is where the shipwreck is, the Seagrow Caves, and the observatory. Kind of takes you all around the length of the island. It does give you some interesting, just high-level DM tips here too, right? Remember, some folks will be playing D&D for the first time utilizing this. So it has a couple of high-level tips, right? Embrace the shared story. It's not a competition. Be fair and flexible. Modify the adventure to suit your needs, and keep a notepad handy. It also has a section here called Making Mistakes, which I do appreciate, right? It says Dungeon Masters are fallible, just like everyone else. And even experienced DMs make mistakes. If you overlook, forget, or misrepresent something, correct yourself and move on. No one expects you to memorize every part of this adventure and all the rules in the rule book. As long as your players are having fun, everything else will be just fine. And that is good DM advice to live by. So, we roll into Chapter 1. Again, there's Presto and Hank. Dragon's Rest. So basically, as I said, or maybe I didn't say, all of the characters have, at least in the pre-written characters, have one reason or another to head to Dragon's Rest. That's going to be critical and important for you, especially if your players are making up their own characters that are not tied to this adventure, they're just making up their own brand new level 1 characters. They need a reason to visit Dragon's Rest, because that's the crux of the adventures. They all need to go there, right? And that's what it starts with, is basically box text as they're arriving into Dragon's Rest Isle, or Stormwreck Isle, rather. So, get a little bit about the background of your characters. There's an optional zombie encounter where zombie sailors start coming up the beach. It says specifically they are shambling zombies. You could just leave them alone or fight them. Either way, it might have a little bit of help endear you to the locals if the party manages to defeat them. And then basically you make your way into Dragon's Rest, which is the sort of main, again, hub area sort of location. You meet Elder Runara, who you now know from my little bit of a background here is in fact a bronze dragon. But she's the leader. She appears as a human woman. And she basically guides all of the residents here. And there's a couple of other characters of note. Basically, I'll just go through them in a sec, but it says that she's basically indifferent to the characters. If you defeat the zombies, she'll be more endeared to you, and her mission is to help those whose lives have been shaped by violence find new paths forward in peace. She'd like to see the conflict between chromatic and metallic dragons stop. And she has a secret lair in a cave accessed by an undersea tunnel. And she doesn't let anybody in there, and she's basically going to be the one who's going to send you on the main parts of your quest as time goes on. There are a handful of kobolds here as well, which I'm a fan of because I do love kobolds. And they give you a handful of them. I'm not going to go through each individual thing, but there are a bunch of them that have names and listed personalities. And they're basically devoted followers of Runara, as she is a dragon. We have Aga, Blep, Frub, Kilnip, Layli, Mumpo, Mila, Rix, and Zark. They are the sort of the main kobolds. Again, they all have different things they could help you with. Some of them have different abilities. Some of them may be quest givers, but they all have their own unique personalities. You have Tarak, who is a human male in late middle age. Basically, it seems like he may have been at one point part of a thieves guild, I believe, but he's an avid botanist. And, uses mushrooms and things found in the isle to make healing potions and things of that nature. It says he visits the sea caves on the south of the island to acquire heartcap mushrooms from the myconids that live there. They're coming later. He uses them to make potions of healing. I thought perhaps maybe he was going to be like that. His name was Tarak, but it was going to be like a nod to one of the characters from the cartoon. No. Then you also have Varnoth, who is a human woman. She was once kind of a rough and tumble sort of adventurer type. She was a feared general at the head of a mercenary company called the Azure Wolves. And basically she's come here to retire. And she is a mason. And she says while working in the temple, she witnessed a ship change course and crash into the rocks. That'll be one of the quests. And then she's indifferent to the visitors. Not much on there. And then as far as you have your Dragon's Rest map here, you sort of have 4 kind of main locations. This is sort of their this path winding in, and this is what they call monastic cells. Pretty kind of Spartan style sleeping quarters. A2 up here is a winch house. A3 is a kitchen. A4 is a library, and down here over A5 is a temple to Bahamut. So basically, you're offered the opportunity to stay here for free. You can either stay and sleep in the temple or choose one of the monastic cells. There's one that's basically available that the party can all share. Several of the other characters we've already mentioned have their own rooms there. That winch house at the end is basically a pallet that drops down to the water to unload things from ships and bring them up without having to carry it all the way up. There's a kitchen, pretty self-explanatory. There is a library, where Runara spends a lot of her time with, the ancient life of a dragon, copying and annotating books. And then again, a temple to Bahamut, which makes sense given her being a metallic dragon. Let's see. And there's basically a magical aura about the place. A non-evil creature who makes a saving throw within the temple can roll a d4 and add the number rolled to the saving throw. So you basically have like a mini bless on you the entire time within the presence of this temple. There's also a big statue of Bahamut in there. An opportunity to introduce your characters to the dragon gods if you so choose. And they have a variety of quests. Now here's the thing. This, I thought, was an interesting choice for something that's supposed to be for new players. It is very sandboxy. It is not railroady much at all. People can provide you with the different options of different quests that you can choose to go on, but it's really up to you as the DM and the players to decide where they're going to go next. right? It says it's designed to be flexible and give the sense that they're in charge of their destiny on Stormwreck Isle. Ideally, the characters will spend time at Dragon's Rest and then explore both Seagrow Caves and the Wreck of the Compass Rose, which is the shipwreck we talked about. They can choose where to go first. After they've explored both of those sites, they should be ready to face Sparkrender in the Clifftop Observatory. Each character sheet includes a personal goal, blah, blah, blah. So here are the couple of quests that we have. We have the zombie resurgence, right? Those zombies that we may or may not have dealt with down at the shore. They may come back and they're attacking some of the kobold citizens. You can help them. They talk to Renara about the zombies. She tells them she suspects a wrecked ship off the rocks to the north is the source of these monsters, pointing you to the shipwreck. You can add more zombies if players are higher level. There's the sea caves, right? So Tarak, this sort of ex-thief we talked about, he's eager to establish a connection with the Myconids, right? He was the guy who made the potions of healing. He basically says they've instilled some sort of fungal octopus monster that guards the area. He also gives them a foul-smelling sack of food scraps they can give the Myconids as a gesture of friendship. Basically, hey, can you go check out what's going on with the Myconids? You have the shipwreck. We mentioned several people have seen the shipwreck. The characters ask Renara about it. She suggests the character is likely to be found on an older wreck, the wreck of the Compass Rose. And then individual quests here, right? So if you happen to be playing one of the pre-written characters, they do have several, which I do appreciate as a way to further instill the individual characters into the story, right? So if you're playing the cleric, it says the cleric was led here by a recurring dream involving the shadow of death. The character talks to Renara about her dream or their quest. Renara listens carefully and pauses to think. Basically points them to the Compass Rose shipwreck. So again, not to say that you need to do this, but you could work out with your players if they're not playing these individual specific characters to tie these into some sort of backstory information they give you so that you can use this information, whether you want to use the visions of death from the cleric background and drop it onto an artificer or whatever, you're able to do that. And then we also have Lost Wormling here. It says, when the characters have proven themselves trustworthy and competent by dealing with the zombies, the Myconids, and the shipwreck, Renara decides it's time to confide in them, as she will reveal to them that she's a dragon and that a wormling has gone missing. And she believes that it's basically at the Clifftop Observatory. She'll give you a special key that'll give you access to the observatory, and that's that. Now, it does have some other exploring the island encounters, right? It says this adventure presents Dragon's Rest in 3 adventure locations in detail, but Stormwreck Isle holds the possibility of excitement and danger beyond those sites. While the characters travel between locations, basically these are random encounters you can throw in. We do have one, based on an owlbear, right? As we know, owlbears are all the rage into the D&D community. Rage, specific operative word there. But basically, yeah, you can fight an owlbear. Again, if your players are level 1, probably don't do that. They will likely die. There is one with a hot spring, which introduces fume drakes, which are a brand new monster contained within this book, which is pretty cool. And they have a cool backstory based around death of dragons basically causes these creatures to just form into existence, which is pretty cool. We have some kobold renegades, which these are chromatic allied kobolds that can attack the party. And then it says what lies beneath. It says, as described in the adventure background section in the introduction, Stormwreck Isle has formed from magic-fueled volcanic activity in the tomb of a monstrous red dragon named Sharath. Some legends and rumors suggest Sharath is not actually dead, merely imprisoned beneath the island, and activity in the Seagrow Cave suggests that not all is well on Stormwreck Isle. You can devise your own adventures around the characters investigating Sharath's tomb. Characters might scour the island until they find hidden vents they can use to access winding tunnels leading deep into the earth. More fume drakes and fire snakes might lurk below. Perhaps there's even a group of kobolds that served mighty Sharath. Such an adventure is yours to devise, and you can put your unique spin on what the characters do and discover there. Of course, if you're not ready to craft an expedition into the caverns beneath the island, then the characters simply don't discover those subterranean passages no matter how much they search. So that is basically the other option, right? They're saying they give you an option to continue things forward if you'd like to, but it's basically on you to figure that out. Here's some more art, once again, of Diana and Hank. I mean, maybe what's-her-face is there, but she's just invisible the whole time. So you can see here is the Seagrow Caves. It says this assumes the characters come here before getting to the wreck of the Compass Rose, and they are still level 1. So this is, again, the cave we kind of talked about a little bit, where there's going to potentially be the Myconids, right? That's this whole encounter here. It's going to have a lot of things, but there's going to be toxic fumes, and you're going to have to, I would familiarize yourself specifically with the different spores and abilities of the myconids, as that will potentially come into play. The myconids rapport spores and things of that nature. And it basically says you can work to convince the myconids and essentially let them know that you're here to help in some way. And then basically you have a map here showing off Seagrow Caves. You've got basically 6 different locations. There's the entrance where they have a spore servant octopus there, basically trying to fight you off to prevent you from getting in. You have the fungus farm where the myconids grow a variety of different fungus here. They also, some of them have named NPCs. There's a violet fungi that you can fight. There's also some blighted fungi, and there is some bits of treasure you can find in various places. There is one in a specific spot that is a unique sort of piece of treasure that I will bring up as is something new that we haven't seen before. Also, the potentially of myconids and sturge attacks as well. But basically, your whole goal here is to get to the end of this sort of crystal cave and sort of close things off to stop these fumes from propagating into the myconid area, which is causing the problems, which is why they had originally set up that spore servant kind of at the front to prevent people from entering. Let's see. Yeah, here's again hardcap mushrooms, mention of those that you can be used to make into healing potions. And then again, the final encounter is the Crystal Cave, where we once again could potentially for the first time encounter fume drakes once again. There's also it says, the heart of the problem is the tomb of the red dragon Sharath deep beneath the island. The presence of such a powerful dragon far underground causes the volcanic activity to produce noxious fumes. What's more, the dragon's energy occasionally tears open small rifts into the fabric of reality that lead to the elemental plane of fire, another dimension of reality that is cosmic source of fiery energy. The plane of fire is the origin of both the orange crystal blocking the vent and the creatures, because we're going to be dealing with some fire snakes, sort of the precursor to salamanders. Again, and then if we end up defeating those and entreating ourselves to the myconid, we will gain a level, and that part of the adventure will be handled. Then the next adventure here on the next page, again, we have some art of Eric. My son was looking at this and he kept asking me if they were Groot, because there's so many of them that kind of look like Groot with the myconids there. And this one takes us to sort of a haunted shipwreck. Again, the shipwreck of the Compass Rose. Long story short, a harpy set up on the shipwreck, which is causing people to drive into typical harpy siren tale. But either way, keep going through. We can see that we have the various decks of the ship compose the majority of this encounter, the 4 different areas, right? The upper deck, main deck, lower deck, and the hold. And you'll encounter a variety of different things as you move through here. A lot of zombies in this encounter. And it's pretty interesting the reason why the zombies are encountered here. Let me see if I can find the specifics of it. But basically, when one of the people on the ship were dying, she prayed to Orcus to reunite her with her husband, and as such, damned them all to be turned into zombies. There is a couple of interesting magic items that you can come across, and then eventually searching through this whole area, learning the history of why this is happening, potentially how to stop this encounter and zombies from raising. Eventually, you'll have to deal with the harpy at the end. Will be sort of the final encounter there. And then once you've defeated, basically stopped the issue, no more shipwrecks are going to be happening on the island. As well as no more myconid issues, then Runara will reveal to you that she is indeed a dragon and that there is a wormling that has gone missing, metallic dragon wormling that's gone missing, and here's the key to get into the Clifftop Observatory. I did flip back, though, because I forgot. In the hot springs, there is a unique sort of mundane item that is the only time I've ever seen this mentioned. It's a specific kind of mushroom. It says a character who examines the mushrooms lining the hot spring, and succeed on a DC 15 nature check identifies these mushrooms as wind spores, a rare fungus with a unique magical property. When a creature squeezes a wind spore mushroom's cap, it releases a small cloud of spores. For 1 hour, the creature doesn't need to breathe, as the spores provide it with oxygen. A wind spore is worth 30 gold pieces, and at any time, 2d4 wind spores are ready to be harvested. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't even know if you'd be able to search for something like that on D&D Beyond because it's like a mundane item. But I thought it was a really cool little addition, something extra that you can find specifically in this adventure that you could obviously expand to include elsewhere in your adventure. As far as magic items, as I said, as we're going through here, there are a handful of things like there's obviously jewels and potential opportunity to make different kinds of money, a couple of healing potions. I believe there is a set of boots of elven kind found in here. A reminder, this is only a level 1 to 3 adventure after all. Potentially options for a scroll, a couple of spell scrolls as well. And then let's see. We continue. Basically, we've likely having done both of those are level 3, ready to enter into the final encounter, the Clifftop Observatory. Once again, showcasing our D&D characters from the cartoon. So we're now level 3, and we're heading up here to deal with what's going on. In recent months, the observatory ruins have become the home of an arrogant blue dragon wormling called Sparkrender, a descendant of Runara's rival, the one we mentioned earlier that she had slain here. This is a descendant. Sparkrender is a descendant of that blue dragon. About 5 days before the characters arrived on the island, a bronze dragon wormling named Adron left the safety of Dragon's Rest and Runara's tutelage, and basically has gone missing since, and is now in the custody of Sparkrender. So we need to get to that specific area because this is kind of on the outskirts of the island. You can see here is sort of where we are over here, and then here is the observatory itself. Has a couple of different rooms. Basically, 4 different rooms within there. So you have the overlook where you're coming in. We have the Rotunda Ruins. You are going to be encountering kobolds and things throughout here that you may or may not be able to convince one way or the other, as well as some sturges. And basically you find a pretty interesting concept of they're trying to do some sort of big major ritual, and there's sort of like an orrery in the middle showing off like the sun, the moon, and basically the Star Killer comet is coming around, or King Killer Star, which is a comet. And Sparkrender is hoping to conduct some major ritual on the night of the comet with using these kobolds to basically help do the chanting, and set up some sort of bridge of energy towards him. We have more kobolds. We have a study, right? An isolated study with a scholar's journal that will provide us a handful of options for information here. It does have a magical trap on it. I will also say I like that when they say if someone casts Detect Magic, they're giving you a lot more information of what will glow with a specific kind of aura in here, which is something nice to see. It says inside the journal contains star maps and notes on experiments with magic. One passage is underlined near the start of the journal. It reads, in an archaic dialect of common, "To ye four scholars, point your eyes towards the dragon's light, for it guides the descent into knowledge." Passage is a clue to unlocking something later on. We might also encounter yet again another magical potion, a potion of lightning resistance, useful when fighting a blue dragon. Then we get to the observatory tower, where the blue dragon wormling waits Sparkrender. And there's a couple of different ways. You can either wake him up, engage him in combat, try to sneak around him if you so choose, and then he will try and fight you and flee if possible. You have the obvious option here. You know that Runara does not want to continue and perpetuate violence, so there's the potential for you to try to convince Sparkrender to seek a different path, but it's really up to you and your players to figure out what they want to do. And then essentially you can also encounter his lair and his little small mini treasure hoard here, which does have a handful of different gold pieces and things. And then there's also a secret library where you can find Adron, the sort of captured bronze dragon wormling, which also leads to a potential other little mini cache of items, which will give you something like a +1 battle axe and a couple of spell scrolls. I also like that it says it finds a +1 battle axe or a spell scroll of Hold Person. You don't get both, you pick one. I guess whatever you want to give to people. And then it talks a little bit about the ritual. So if the party were to like encounter and then leave and let the ritual complete, it says if the characters leave the observatory without defeating Sparkrender, they might return to find the blue wormling's ritual underway. This is most likely to happen if the characters leave and take a long rest before confronting Sparkrender, or if they flee from combat with Sparkrender and return when they've rested. Another possibility is the characters drive Sparkrender away from the island without killing him, but leave Adron imprisoned in Area D6. In this case, Runara urges the characters to return to find him. When they arrive, Sparkrender is rested, now trying to complete the ritual. And then it basically says, in either case, the characters arrive just as Sparkrender's ritual is getting underway. And it basically says, at the end of each round of combat on initiative count 0, a random magical effect occurs caused by the magical lights that swirl around. It has a D10 table here. And it's basically chaotic. You don't know what's going to happen. It could be that Adron and the characters all get hit points. Sparkrender must make a dex save or take fire damage. Sparkrender's breath weapon automatically recharges. Each of the characters must make a dex save or take fire damage and erupt in flames. Or Adron and the characters gain advantage on attack rolls and saving throws until initiative count 0 on the next round as the brass light shimmers around them, basically giving them the benefit of a bronze dragon. And then basically it has a little bit about how to free the dragon that's there, how to disrupt the ritual, how to manipulate the effigies and the sculpture, and so on. And then basically you get to the end of the adventure. And with Adron in tow, the characters can return victorious to Dragon's Rest. Runara is pleased by the Bronze Dragon Wormling's safe return. As a reward, she gives each character a potion of healing and a exquisite pearl worth 100 gold pieces. She welcomes them to stay at Dragon's Rest as long as they wish and furnishes them with whatever supplies they need for their travels when they're ready to leave the island. If Sparkrender is dead, she grieves the death of yet another dragon, but she doesn't condemn the characters for killing him. If your players wish to continue playing their characters, you can use the contents of this set to create your own adventures. Look at the Exploring the Island section we mentioned before. Perhaps Sparkrender or a relative of his pursues the characters in search of revenge, or perhaps something uncovered in the secret library leads the characters to a distant locale in the pursuit of more adventure. If you want to advance these characters beyond 3rd level and create adventures for them, you'll need the Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, and Player's Handbook. And then it rolls right into the appendices, right? This is the appendices, magic items. It is a page, and it is nothing that you don't have in the Dungeon Master's Guide or even in the base rule set. Then we roll into the creatures. Now, as I said, we do have a couple of new stat blocks here. First off, we have a Blue Dragon Wormling. That's not new. Although I do believe that may be new art for a Blue Dragon Wormling there. Let's see. On the next page, we have Adult Bronze Dragon Wormling, a Fire Snake. And then we have the Fume Drakes, which I am actually quite upset we don't have art for the Fume Drakes, but it does say, Fume Drakes are mischievous creatures that arise from the lingering magical energy of a dead dragon. They resemble small legless dragons formed from clouds of greenish smoke. They delight in causing pain and confusion in others. They are challenge rating 1/4. They are elemental, immune to fire, poison, the poison condition. They have a sort of death burst ability, and when they die, each creature within 5 feet must make a DC 11 con save or take a D8 poison damage. They don't require food, drink, or sleep. They have a bite that does a D4 plus 2 fire damage, and scalding breath. They exhale a 15-foot cone of scalding steam. Each creature in that area must make a DC 11 dex save or take a D8 fire damage, or half on a success that recharges on a 6. That could also be a potential fun option to give to somebody as a familiar as well. We have a ghoul, a harpy, kobold, a couple different kobold options there. We have a myconid sprout, a myconid adult. We have Sinessa, who is a unique NPC who's sort of the leader of the myconids. Looking at her, she is significantly stronger than a myconid adult. She's a challenge rating 2 as compared to a challenge rating 1/2 of a typical myconid adult. We're talking about triple hit points. Still has sun sickness, still has distress spores. She does have multi-attack, 1 fist, and use hallucination spores. Her damage does 3d4 plus 2d4 poison damage on a fist attack. Hallucination spores is a unique ability that she has. She ejects spores at one creature within 5 feet. They must succeed on a DC 12 Constitution saving throw, be poisoned for a minute. The poison target is incapacitated while they hallucinate, and they can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of their turns, ending the effect. Owlbear. We have the Spore Servant Octopus, which we do actually have art for, which isn't much different than a standard octopus, but I'll read through it. It says, Spore Servants are dead creatures reanimated by magical spores of a myconid leader. The final act of the myconid leader in Seagrow Caves before lapsing into current comatose state was creating a Spore Servant from a dead giant octopus to protect the caves while the leader could not. Unlike a living octopus, the Guardian has only basic control over its tentacles. Rather than coiling around intruders to immobilize them, the Spore Servant simply bludgeons them. So therefore, its tentacle attacks only do a D8 plus 3 bludgeoning damage and not much beyond that. Then we have the Sturge, And then we have Tarak and Varnoth. Those are the two kind of NPCs that we heard of earlier. Again, one is kind of rogue-esque with a dagger and then cunning action, and Varnoth just has a short sword but makes 3 attacks. And then the back gives us the violet fungus and the zombie stat block. Not much to talk about there, but let's go ahead and jump into the website. So here is the dnd.com/starter, right? It gives us how to play, and there's these videos here. Prep for adventure, start playing, right? Here's our, so if we click this, does this just take us to the starter set? Again, where to buy at Target, as you can see here, right? 10/4/2022 for the general release. It says, okay, it says our previous D&D starter set is still available at Amazon. In addition, Lost Mines of Phandelver has been unlocked for all new and existing D&D Beyond users on D&D Beyond. So again, I still think this is a better adventure overall. Let's go back and see if there's anything else. More D&D Beyond. Yeah, so there's actually, I thought maybe we were going to have like a specific page for Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. This is just the generic how to play Dungeons and Dragons page. It doesn't like how to play, how to DM. We can just click these. What is D&D? Does this just take us to the different parts of this page? It does. So yeah, it doesn't actually give us anything specific to Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. Oh, okay, look, hang on. Encounter walkthroughs, drowned sailors. I may be mistaken. Okay. New to the Dungeon Mastering, here's your guide to running the first encounter from the D&D Starter Set, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. So you can click this here to watch that. Continuing the adventure. So your group to survive the drowned sailors encounter. Fortunately, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle is just the beginning. When you're ready to continue your journey, this video walks you through the rest of the story and provides tips for how to handle what's coming next. Okay. Well, let's play this video and skip to the end and see what they have.
So, your party met the drowned sailors and made it out in one piece? Your group is invested in the story and wants to play more? Well, there's a big glowing exclamation mark over your head, right? This is where you'll really get to use your imagination. I might approach the group directly to explain that he desperately needs more heart-cap mushrooms on page 18. Depending on how they arrive, they may have to
So I will say I like having this level of walkthrough. I do think this is basically what I just did, but a little bit more polished, obviously, while also having access to the official assets digitally.
mark the tides as they approach. Then they'll be leveling up to level 3 instead, which means they're now is the treasure. If we take the crate on the lower deck as an example, the adventure has a table of potential goodies that the players can find here. The areas the players can access, and the observatory has 5 locations for the players to, including defeating Sparkrender, driving him away, and saving the imprisoned Adron.
Okay, here's what I wanted to see.
The Dragons of Stormwreck Isle adventure ends with the players at level 3, pockets bursting with treasures, with a sense of achievement from helping Runara and completing their own personal quests. As with all pre-written adventures, the fun doesn't end just because the adventure is over. You've now got tons of resources that you can use however you want. Maps can be reused as new locations, NPCs the players met on their journey can have new quests, stat blocks can be used for new characters. The possibilities are endless. Were there any side quests the group didn't get to?
The Roomba Cat and Carl? Alright. Let's play that again, sorry.
Beneath from the Dragon's Rest chapter have plenty of potential to become larger adventures. Shareth's tomb can be home to all manner of new foes, from kobolds to zombies. Rumours suggest that Shareth isn't actually dead, merely imprisoned beneath the island, so who knows what your players will find down there? Well, you will, of course. As Stormwreck Isle comes to an end, it might be good to find out what your players enjoyed most of and what they'd like to see more of. Did they love exploring shipwrecks, fighting zombies, traversing ruins? Well, you're in luck, because the only limit in Dungeons & Dragons is your imagination, and the starter set is yours to use for plenty of future adventures. There you have it. The Dragons of Stormwreck Isle adventure is bursting full of places to explore, characters to meet, and quests to embark upon, and the best bit is that even if your players don't get a chance to see everything, it isn't over. Whether the group wants to keep playing as their characters or try something new, there are so many possibilities to keep the magic of Stormwreck Isle going. So, good luck and happy adventuring.
Alright, so kind of what I thought. We weren't actually going to get too much on ideas of what we could do after that. Although I will say, if you want to run this adventure, you can just go to that website. You don't actually technically really even need to buy it. You can get the gist of it, either watching my video or watching that video, and just basically get the generic rundown of how to handle that. So I don't know. I don't think that this is better than Lost Mines of Phandelver. I think Lost Mines of Phandelver is honestly one of the best starter adventures that you can play in Dungeons and Dragons, specifically 5th edition, but potentially for any edition. It gives you all of the tastes of all of the things you want, right? The party can get, there's weird intrigue, a meeting with NPCs, wheeling and dealing, and possibly different social encounters, links to things in the future, fighting a dragon, Sword of a Beholder, magic items abound. Lots of cool things. I really appreciate that. And then a potential home base and then future resources and income from having opened the Wave Echo Cave mine. This, I don't really get that much from it. I also, the level 1 to 3, like, I told you, I'm going to be playing through this. I have my players, 2 of them very seasoned. The other 2, I'm not too sure about their history with Dungeons and Dragons, but we're going to be streaming it, and we're going to see. I'm not going to cut corners to finish things quickly, but this could possibly be a 2, maybe 3 session adventure from start to finish, right? The biggest thing is probably going to be the intro mission of kind of like when they show up and like getting used to the characters and the players and the setting. But from what I read through with that shipwreck, with the caves, I don't see those being very long series of encounters personally. And then the Clifftop Observatory, yeah, I don't see much more going on there either. So potentially this could be, if your group is very efficient, you could probably bang out maybe 2 of these, maybe even the entire adventure in one sitting. Whereas I think it would be almost impossible to do that with Lost Mines of Phandelver. I think Lost Mines of Phandelver is a pretty good, like, 5 to 10, 2 to 3 hour session adventure, depending on what people want to do. And it has a really good hook for a future adventure. Now, I'm not going to say that there isn't stuff that you could do. Maybe you all could think about and list off in the comments fiery dragon, underground, volcanic, cave-based adventures, or things that you could use to perpetuate this forward. Like I said, I'm hopeful that on October 4th, when this becomes available to the public, we might get other free future continuing adventures on D&D Beyond, or perhaps people will take this and step forward with it on the DM's Guild as well. But I don't know. I anticipate this will be done probably by the first week in September if we stream it every Tuesday. But be sure to come out and hear. It'll be here on this YouTube channel where we'll stream it. You'll get to see a couple of new players as well, all brand new characters. Everybody chose to play small-sized races, so they're playing. They named their group Big Damn Heroes because they did. So we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. I have been trying to pick up, I want to get 3 copies of this before I do a giveaway so that I can send them out to people and give 3 winners. I have also heard through the grapevine that Baldwin Games will have them if you happen to be in person at Gen Con. You may be able to pick up a copy of it there at their booth. So be on the lookout for that as well. Further updates will be provided by me once I'm there and present at Gen Con. By the way, I will also be there. Lots of swag as well. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.